made it to 64.
And 74 and 84.
Yeah, I was looking for some music that would go with the talk today, and I thought, you know, aging can be a little heavy, and I just love that too, and the reference to gardening, and anyone that knows Lee, I met Lee through Seeds. She was the founder and creator of Seeds, an organization that one of the only organizations that I know that best brings together seniors and young people to teach about gardening and to see how that works, but just to have that exchange amongst people who didn't otherwise know each other and is cross-generational, and how important that is. And so we're really happy to have Lee here to speak about aging with grace, as she has demonstrated so well, and we all are. 64 doesn't seem that old anymore. So thank you, Lee.
Oh, there's the lapel mic. Did you want to wear the lapel?
No, thank you.
You just hold that
One
up.
more thing hanging off me I don't need. Wow. This is not going to be a talk about grace. I feel totally graceless, and I'm a newbie when it comes to learning about aging. I'm actually going to talk about the discipline of heartbreak in aging. It won't be miserable, I promise you. And the kind of space and compassion that opens in people. So I'm Lee. I've just turned 72. And a couple of years ago, I realized that there was a possibility I might have a gift or an aptitude for writing. It took me about 70 years to stumble upon this form of creative expression. And I also felt desperate to know more about aging and how people can navigate the losses and changes of aging with a sense of connection deepening in themselves and with others. And so I set out on a quest to talk to elders, to invite conversations around the area with people to whom I was a complete and utter stranger, and trust that they would be honest with me, that there might be a welcome at the hearth. And what I'm going to share with you today is not my expertise on aging. It is the conversations that come from the kitchen tables of the Kootenays to you, and I'm simply a transmitter of that, and thrilled to be here with you this morning. So my talk is not going to be some sell about my book. I did write a book, and you can certainly contact me if you want one. And I'm listed in the phone book, Lee Reid. If anybody looks at their phone books anymore, seems not. I'm going to begin with an invitation to you. Michael mentioned that I founded Seeds, a greenhouse society. Really, I was sort of the social convener for gathering youth and seniors together to grow food. And then it's passed on, and I believe it's thriving. And my invitation is a second chance to do it again. I have been contracted by Nelson Cares to write a book on seniors and youth, and I will be facilitating groups with seniors and youth this spring, out of which stories and conversations about topics such as bullying and Me Too and loneliness and dying and belonging in community will provide the meat of the book and of my writing. And my invitation to you is to come and join this. The group will consist of 6 to 8 seniors, 6 to 8 youth from the high school, and I also am welcoming youth mentors and recorders to hold the space and record the conversations, just like I did for a year and a half at the kitchen tables and in the living rooms of people in the Slocan Valley, Castlegar, Caslow, Nelson. And I would welcome seniors to hold the space, sort of like the old growth forest surrounding this group of mixed ages, and to record what people say. And I will transcribe that into stories, and we will publish a book this year. And then in October, CARES will host a community forum. And this is the beginning of an expansion by them into seniors services, into becoming a senior center with direct service. So that's on the doing end. My conversation here today with you is more about the quality of life in aging. It's more about being and feelings and relationships. Most of what I say is stolen from other people, so please don't credit me with being amazingly unique in my thinking. I simply listen and attempt to understand what you say to me, and then reflect it back, communicate it back. And that part may be unique, may be creative. Let's see from this morning. I've discovered there's no point in creating a plan to my talks because I don't look at my notes. I forget what I said. When people ask me, did you have a plan for your book? I went, heavens no. I learned it as I went, and I was guided by the people and how they responded to my questions and the give and take of the relationships. So the discipline of heartbreak, what is that? The reality is that seniors have been through, are seasoned veterans of broken hearts, of letting go, of navigating the many smaller losses now that come with aging, and with recognizing that all those small losses are part of the great preparation for leaving. And really, that's our job, as we're preparing to go. And at the same time, with our aging, we want to arrive and be present in our lives in a much more wholehearted, less distracted and task-oriented fashion. And so there's a crossover in aging between living and dying. There's a grieving of this. I found in talking to seniors, an acceptance, still a fighting spirit when it comes to what part of myself I'm now being challenged to let go of. My relationships, my body, my health, my mind. I personally have a friend who's just received a terminal diagnosis, and I am honored to be part of the conversations about living and dying, because at that stage it's hard to tell which is which, and which do you invest in the most, your living, such as it is, or your dying with as much presence and dignity as you can garner in your community. And I think every one of us with aging must be asking, with my aging, what kind of legacy, how can I live the most creatively? The discipline of heartbreak is knowing that what you care most deeply about will break your heart, and already has. And yet, you will go ahead and take the risk. That is the edge, the razor's edge of choices with aging. Do I have the energy? Do I have the ability? How can I most be creative and generate the deepest connection in myself or in my community with my aging, given my dwindling resources, given the unknowns of the time I have left? There is a lot about the discipline of heartbreak that involves, and with aging, living in the not knowingness, where you can't rely necessarily, you can walk a straight line, or have coherent thinking, or that your friends will be there, and possibility of even facing homelessness with inflation and dwindling financial resources. There's a lot of shaky ground. So is this depressing? Yes. And what can it light? What sort of fire can it light in you to reach beyond the fear and take the risks to engage or to go deep inside, to discover more about who you are? So did you know that Great Britain now has a new ministry? Now, I may run for this office in Nelson as a seasoned 72-year-old, and it's the Ministry of Loneliness. Have you heard about that? They have a Minister of Loneliness. Why? Because loneliness is such an enormous affliction, cause of disease, death, and mortality in Britain, and they're recognizing it. What is that minister doing? That minister is looking at ways to bring seniors and youth together, is looking at co-housing development such as is happening in Europe. Now, this is not a new idea here in Nelson. You might have heard Peter Bartle in his book on recent modern architecture from, I think, the 20s to the 60s in Nelson, talk about renovating and converting Mount St. Francis into co-housing for the generations, because we have a housing crisis. So that's, would you ask yourself, would you want that title, the Minister of Loneliness? What does that bring up for you? And yet, isn't it honest? What I hope my talk, my book, encourages in you are transparent, authentic conversations about aging, about the losses, about the courage it takes, about what you discover that's meaningful in life. Now, I will talk a bit about what I discovered with people so I don't totally depress you here. And the caution with those conversations is, don't allow yourself to wander into that convenient and comfortable, well-defined pathway of whining about everything that's wrong. It's hard. Getting old can be scary. It can be exciting as you get from Jack and Judy. New love is possible at this age. Look at me, I write a book when I'm 70 with no idea of how to do it. Look at us gathered together today in connecting in a tribal sense around a flame. That deep longing to connect, to be in a tribe, to belong, is alive and well with seniors. And so I encourage conversations that talk about the vulnerability of aging and the hope and the courage it takes. And I hope if somebody will give me a show of a finger or hands, that sounds better, at about 1:45 to have enough time to create more conversation with you. So the discipline of heartbreak is allowing your heart to break open and feeling all the feelings and reaching for a quality of compassion in yourself and others, or opening to a spaciousness that is open to life and what it brings, but isn't going to sit comfortably in front of your television set in a comfortable, lonely solitude. And that too is another seductive part of aging. There's so much one can be comfortable about within the walls that one can hide behind in aging. And I recognize that tendency in myself to want to have life easier because it's been hard and because aging can be hard. So, here's what the elders shared with me. This is what they inspired in me. I went to George Coletti, age probably 96 now. Does anybody not know George? Sort of the historian of Nelson. I hear he was no, you don't know George, right? George is Italian. The Coletti family own a lot of property around Nelson. He lives out on John's Walk, Sproul Drive, near the RCMP building. Beautiful home. George has, at 96, lives alone, but he's surrounded by family. And this is a man who remembers, whose family actually married Italian immigrants, married into the Maglio family in 1919 or so. George was born in Ladysmith. And then the family created a farm in Uphill. And then the Kootenay Exchange, which began as their Italian grocery store in 20s or 30s in Nelson, and then morphed into the antique store on Baker Street run by Lou Coletti, his son. But George represents a senior who loves people, who listens deeply to people, and who holds the history of this town. He says that when he was a kid in the grocery store, the Poles and the Norwegians and the Ukrainians and the Chinese and the Russians would come in, and they were all welcomed equally. And he remembers the Chinese culture in Nelson when the area was flourishing with market gardens, and the Chinese supplied groceries in baskets, door to door, and they brought their food to the Coletti grocery store, which also the Coletti farm supplied. George represents somebody who loves people, who welcomes people into his home, and he says, if you don't know your history, you are a leaf that doesn't know it is part of a tree. And so the seniors and the elders such as we do represent a holding of the history, of the memory, and of the life experience, that if you have the faith to believe that you can communicate that without relying on old stories, that this is of value for others to know, because it gives the young and the aging a sense of their root connection. And so George is a master storyteller who makes sure he still participates in the community and belongs to at least 2 groups that I know of, and hosts huge dinners at his home. As far as I know, he does the tomato sauce and the spaghetti, as you can imagine. This is Italian. So there's an example of a generative spirit. Yet when he was young, as a young man, George, probably single-handed, explored many of the lakes and isolated areas in the back country on his own. I'm going to move along. George represents connection and community. And then if we take a look at folks in the Slocan Valley, there's Pat Morrison, a retired psychiatric nurse, now farmer, living out near Mamacitas in Winlaw. And Pat says, I am learning patience and compassion for the vulnerable places that open as I learn to let go of control. There is such a strong presence in this farmer who used to be one of the first midwives in this area, visiting women up long forested driveways throughout the winter when she was a young woman. Now Pat is a master quilter, and in her age, I think she's 79, she's a writer. She writes stories for her grandchildren, and she says in her creativity, she experiences the deepest connection with life, and her legacy is to leave that creative expression, is to inspire others with that. So what is legacy? It's not what you leave when you're dead. It's the living expression of who you are, of what you cherish. She takes 2 students a year to apprentice in organic farming. And although my book does have a lot of gardening advice, recipes, and it's about people living on their land, what it's intended to convey is the love of people, the deep love for something that lives and grows, in their case, their land, and how it renews and gives back to them. But you could be growing a pot of geraniums in your kitchen window, and that too is generative and land. And it is important to have something green. 2 minutes in your life. Both George and I'm just going to talk back about George and Helen. Somebody tell me Helen's last name. Helen Jameson, our wildlife sanctuary person, have been through a tremendous number of deaths. They know each other. George knew Helen's 3 or 4 husbands. Helen has lost children while she was a mother. George has lost his wife to ALS, his daughter-in-law to ALS, a niece. These seniors have been through so much death, and you have to ask, how did they knit themselves together with all that loss? And George would say relationships and reaching out to people. And Helen would say, my passion has always been animals. And animals, which I've loved since I was a farming kid, helped me with my grief. And when I walk my land, I will never leave my land, my wildlife sanctuary. My passion is rehabilitating wildlife. And when I walk my land, she says, I feel the footsteps of my children and my husband's under my feet. They are with me. I believe in my God. She attends church regularly. It's probably there right now. And that helps me to keep going. That gives me a reason to live. So aging, some of what I've shared with you is about finding one person or passion to cherish, keeping in mind it may change with aging. You may not know, but keep asking and looking for it. What can I cherish? That, and this is Tom Wayman, a famous author's belief, he says, when I give, in his case, to creative literary pursuits in the communities, I give without expectation, but life always gives back to me. And that's his passion. So these seniors represent community, offering something that will nurture connections in their lives and committing to something creative that they can cherish. There's far more, but I think that's enough for now. My question now, to come back to you gathering here, is what inspires your aging? And I want to first tell you, I'm not here to problem solve about aging. So if you have problem-oriented questions, please share that with each other over the wonderful coffee and cookies, because you will find incredible wisdom in this gathering, and I'm a lousy advice giver. I would like to hear about what touches your heart and concerns yours with your aging, and we'll all learn together.
Yeah, we can talk, we can have discussion for 5 minutes.
5 or so minutes.
Yeah.
So this can go around. Who would like to take the mic and pass the torch? And trust that whatever you say, someone here needs to hear. Judy.
There are a few things that inspire me. The concept of late life love is one of them. And what I find really interesting about that from an aging perspective is it actually took me 70 years of personal work and struggle and crises and whatever to get to the point where I actually knew who I was and could actually be open to a relationship that was really healthy. And it really did take me that long. And also, previous to meeting Jack, I decided for my 70th birthday to go to Israel. It was my first time. That's my roots, that's my community, that's my ancestry, all that. And that in itself was transformative for me and helped me to feel much more of a connection to my tribe all around the world. And the other thing that has inspired me for a really long time is what I have to offer mothers with young children and babies. And I have a vision of writing my book about parenting. I'm passionate about it. And that really is something that I look forward to, and maintaining that connection with young mothers and babies and children. And that, for me, keeps me perpetually young and inspires me. So I guess it's the process where we allow ourselves to grow and change continuously and find aspects of ourselves we didn't know about and really come to peace with who we are in depth. And I know what I bring to this relationship is such a personal honesty. I was married 3 times. We're not going to do that. But I, each step along the way, all the crises, all the losses, I dealt with a lot of illness in my family. I dealt with my parents' Alzheimer's, dementia, like all this stuff that's happened has really just like seeds that just keep blooming for me. And I feel like I'm actually really blooming now at this point in my life. So it's very exciting for me.
Thank you, Jean.
Thanks, Lee. That was a very thoughtful place to start from, a place of where we open into our, both from our heartbreak into gratitude and into a deeper place for love, and being a veteran of heartbreak also. This time of year is an echo of the time for where I've lost my soulmate. But it is, what regenerates me is both my own children, but particularly I think my grandchildren, and raising first, taking them in when they need. Done that with several granddaughters, and I've got a grandson that's circling in and out quite a bit right now. But also very much my work, which actually these days kind of has evolved of its own right across the country and internationally. When you speak of Israel, I was Skyping this morning with my colleague there we've done work together. But it is that place of, thinking about what it means to lose one person, to think of losing a planet, so that the whole environmental concern that's there, I think John spoke earlier there about, we know what we need to do, but we need to find that place inside ourselves to do it. And it is that kind of connection in and bringing the land and the land-based and the creativity into all aspects of healing. That's super important. So that I really honor that place of bridging those dialogues between elders and youth and between parents and their children, and the work that I do at the Art Therapy Institute, and knowing it revitalizes, I mean, it's a lot of work, and it really revitalizes me knowing and seeing and hearing what they're doing. I've just come out of 3.5 weeks of what we call an immersion, and and I think of, what they're doing, what a young man's doing in St. John's, Newfoundland, and others in Powell River, and here, and in Winnipeg, at Drug Court, and to be able to support and create vision around that is being able to kind of give back, which is, I think, for me, a need that I have to be of value, or to, I don't know, it's not even to be of value actually, it's to be able to respond, so, yeah, thanks.
Thanks very much, Lee. I think about these things often these days, and I had this experience recently. I was listening to a pop song on YouTube, and this young man was singing about, "I'm trying the best that I can." And I heard a whole bunch of stories about young people and anxiety on the radio at the same time. And I looked at these young people and I thought, look at the world that they have, and the anxiety and insecurities that they have. And I think, so part of the joy of being the age I am is having a whole history to look back on, and I never had that experience that they did at all. I never tried to measure up or succeed in the world the way they are trying the best they can, and it's quite a different experience. I grew up a child in revolt of flower power, and that I didn't feel I had to meet any social expectations, and they do. It was really, so having some perspective to look back and see that is really rich and enjoyable, and yeah.
I might like to say something, Michael.
Okay, Mary?
There's a couple of concerns. One of the concerns is about the heart. I have a hard time dealing with heartbreak and heart feeling things. The heart is a muscle. I only am talking this way because my daughter has been a heart transplant, and one of the hard things to get through was that this heart was a muscle. It's not where romance is. It's not what guides you. It's part of your body, like your kidneys and your lungs. But the heart, we're not maybe making enough use of our brain, of our muscle. The heart puts oxygen and energy into the brain so that you can figure things out. You can feel that love. You can feel that feeling. So maybe it's not your heart that's breaking. It's your feelings about whatever is going on. And the other thing that concerns me a little bit, I'd like to see a whole lot more, less stress, especially maybe in the kids growing up about, well, and me too, of course me, because I'm part of the whole thing. We all are. We're all part of everything. More emphasis on you and a little bit less on me. Why, I should do this. I feel that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to have that. I need this. Maybe, what do you need? How can I help you? A little bit more about you, and then you'd stop thinking about all the things that we lack, or I lack, and think, maybe I can give something. A little more emphasis on the kids, giving the kids something to look forward to and be a part of and be important. A little more importance of self, that. A couple of things I think about.
Thanks, Mary. And thanks, Lee. I mean, that doesn't end the conversation.
It's just the beginning, the conversation continues. I have an envelope, I'm gonna pass two things around. An envelope with quotes about aging. So take one, don't look through them, just pick one, it'll be yours. And it's a little tongue-in-cheek, some of it, but some of it's sage advice around aging. And take one and we'll have an opportunity to read that. And as well, I'll pass around a basket. We pass this basket around and ask for you to contribute so that we can pay the rent here, we can hire speakers, we can hire musicians, we can pay for candles and those sort of things. And thank you.
Yeah, we have to pay. I'm just warning you.
So maybe we'll, as the basket goes around, we'll pass this microphone around and you can read your quote.
Mine says, "He who is of a calm and happy nature will hardly feel the pressure of age, but to him who is of an opposite disposition, youth and age are equally a burden." And this is by Plato in the year 400 BC.
Do not try to live forever. You will not succeed. George Bernard Shaw.
If you're always battling against getting older, you're always going to be unhappy, because it's going to happen anyhow.
This one's by Ann Landers, who we know, from 1918 to 2002. At age 20, we worry about what others think of us. At age 40, we don't care what they think of us. At age 60, we discover they haven't been thinking of us at all.
None are so old as those who have outlived enthusiasm. Henry David Thoreau.
Go this way. Go back.
As we grow older, we must discipline ourselves to continue expanding, broadening, learning, keeping our minds active and open, by Clint Eastwood.
Make his day.
I like him. As we grow older, we grow both more foolish and wiser at the same time. That's why someday Francois de la Roquefoucauld, I'm saying that right, I'm sure, Roquefoucauld. I'll say all this.
One more or one other?
We'll go through them all.
You want to keep yours. Today is the oldest you've ever been and the youngest you'll ever be again. Eleanor Roosevelt.
Did you have one?
Who also said, age isn't for sissies. Yeah. Okay.
I'm kind of comfortable with getting older because it's better than the other option, which is being dead. So I'll take getting older. That's George Clooney.
Henry Ford said, anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. And as a 74-year-old learner, perpetual learner, I totally agree.
Me too. In the end, it is not the years of your life that count. What counts is the life in your years. Abraham Lincoln.
And this was from the same guy that did one of my favorite quotes. The rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. Mark Twain. Wrinkles merely indicate where the smiles have been.
Laughter is timeless, imagination has no age, and dreams are forever. Walt Disney.
Read that again, please.
Laughter is timeless. Imagination has no age, and dreams are forever. Walt Disney.
Master storyteller.
As you get older, three things happen. The first is your memory goes, and I can't remember the other two.
One is the pieces of paper that we pick fit, especially ourselves. If we pick the one that's for ourselves mostly, because this one here certainly fits me. A person is getting old when they walk around a puddle instead of right through it.
Do not regret growing older. It's a privilege denied to many. And that also fits in my family, because a lot of my family did not survive very long. And I'm one of the older ones in it, and I'm honored to be that way.
We get too old, too soon old, and too late smart.
Like surprise.
And this is one I saw on somebody's kitchen wall. Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a great battle.
Thanks, Lee. And thanks, everyone. I'm going to extinguish the candle and end our service, and this part of our service, and then we'll have some announcements, and then you're welcome to join us for coffee and tea and conversation. So as I put out the candles, I'm going to put these ones out first. We just do things differently every time. That's one of the things you'll find if you come back. It'll never be the same. It really is a creation of the people that arrive here.
You mean to come back to life, or to come back to these mornings here?
I meant here. I'm not sure about that other piece. So as I extinguish this candle, know that we are part of a community that is alive and bright, and even though I put out this candle, the light goes with us. Are there any announcements? Pete?
I'm going to be setting up services for February, and next week we're going to have Jason Pyle. Does he say his name Pyle or Peel?
Peel.
Jason Peel is coming. He's a local activist, I would say gay rights activist. So he's going to talk to us about living in Nelson as a gay father, and that's part of how we deal with long-standing homophobia in our society. Something that I have to deal with. So it's something, and I've got more coming during the month. I'm lining up several other speakers. It's going to be sort of quite a social issues month, of course, surprise. But I may have to travel, so I'm looking for other people who might, like, if you want to be a service leader for one of the Sundays in February, please let me know, because I may have to go to Edmonton.
Thanks, Keith. Announcements, Peter.
So on Friday, I went to Castlegar and saw the opening of Hollow in the Land, which was made by a Castlegar director who grew up in Castlegar. And Castlegar actually is Castlegar in the movie, not like California or someplace else like most films that are made in BC. So it is a murder mystery, so I can't like totally tell you, go see it, because, you know, it's scary. But it's well done, and it reminds me of kind of the blue-collar days of the Kootenays, and a little bit more, you know, I don't know, grit. And I said, well, is it showing in Nelson? He said, nope. It's a limited release, you gotta go to Castlegar. So I guess he's trying to get the arts people to go to Castlegar, I don't know.
And the name of the movie?
Hollow in the Land, yeah.
Which theater?
At the complex, yeah.
How long is it showing?
1 week, yeah.
So it's on now?
Yeah, you can watch the trailer, because like it is a bit of synthetic tension, my mother would call it, but that's the entertainment industry in a way, yeah. And what if, you know, a murder happened, there's still gonna be a murder mystery.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Peter. Just two quick announcements. April 7th, if you happen to be in Vancouver, there's a gathering of Unitarian congregations, and everyone's welcome. Unitarians are welcome to come and spend a day being together and learning. So we had an invitation. I'm going to be going out there. If anyone else is or would like a ride, let me know. As well, the Unitarian conference happens. A national Canadian conference happens every 2 years, and it's in Hamilton in May. So if you happen to be someone who goes to Ontario, you might want to schedule your trip for May so that you can spend a weekend at Hamilton at the university with other Unitarians. Yeah.
Dates? Go ahead.
May 18th and April 7th.
Oh, I just wanted to mention that I will be away for a couple of weeks, and I'm hoping that some of you will come in early and give Keith a hand setting up. He is new to the job. Please.
Thanks, Karen. Why don't we all stand and just have a closing together somehow? Maybe I'll ask Ally if there's, or Karen, if there's some words or a song that comes to mind we could just sing as a closing.
Go now in peace.
Sure.
Hold hands.
Hold
Okay.
hands, Marcia says.
So, go now in peace, go now in joy. Go now in peace, go now in joy. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Let's do that again. Go now in peace, go now in joy. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Thanks, Ally.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Dan.
Want to say something? Oh, okay.
One of our local poets was, had said, "A small number of breaths you take." It's
Remember, there's coffee here.
This was kind of. Say it.